Just by a show of hands, because I do recognize I'm blessed with a memory that never forgets faces, although names escape me like flour through a sieve. Faces I never forget. So I recognize some people who were in the 16-week session, but just by a show of hands, how many of you here were involved in those 16 workshops? Right. Okay, so I'll be watching you for attentive listening. Okay, today. No, I'm kidding. So when I was asked to come and talk about inspiration, innovation, and influence, and then wrapped up in a sort of a theme of empowerment several months ago, I thought to myself, how is that going to relate to listening? Where is that? How are we going to bring that together in terms of listening, especially the type of listening that builds relationships, that builds meaningful moments. It's a different type of listening. Those of you who have taken the workshop would know. It's a much more inclusive, attentive way to listen to someone, that you're building a connection with them rather than you're just receiving information. It's a very involved type of listening. How does that relate to listening? And then I thought, brainwave came to me. I thought, well, maybe this is about listening in three ways. Maybe this is about listening to ourselves. This is about listening to our peers, our colleagues, those we work with. And this is about listening to our patients. Maybe there are three distinct groups of people that we actually listen to. And I include ourselves in that because, frankly, in my world, if we're unable to listen to ourselves, if we're having difficulty actually having an honest conversation and being able to get information about ourselves from ourselves, you can't listen to anybody else. You just don't have the space, you just don't have the attention, and you're not open to hearing new kinds of information from somebody else if you have difficulty listening to yourself. So I thought about that for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then I went, I'm not so sure. But I'm going to try it out on you today, so you let me know at the end whether it connects, okay? I'm also going to show you some clips from a show that I do in Canada that takes place in the airport, Toronto International Airport. And I'm going to show you 3 stories that for me represent inspiration, innovation, and influence. There are 3 individuals who have had significant impact not only on their own lives, but also on the people that really care for them. And I'm hoping that, along with me, that you will find these character traits in these people that you can relate to. But the first thing I want to talk to you about is being empowered. Because there's a lot of conversation going on around the world right now about empowerment. And I'm not sure that we really grasp what empowerment really means. People who are on the margins of society, and I say society being mass society, mass culture, people who find themselves on the outsides of that, feel like they don't have any power. They feel like somebody else has all the power. And they'll only take that for so long before they start to gather together collectively and they start to demand that they be seen, that they be heard, that they have some power. Now, I'm from Canada, but I know you have that going on in the US. I know that there are groups of people within the US, in your society, that are demanding that they be heard and that they be seen and that their opinions be included in what goes on in this country and how this country is actually run. We have the same thing in Canada. But that is not empowerment. Somebody else cannot make you powerful. Somebody else cannot empower you. They can share, perhaps, influence, but they can't give you power. Because true empowerment is actually something you give yourself. It is a choice you make. It is a choice I make. one of the last things that you can strip from a person is their dignity. It's the last thing that is able to be taken away from us. And it's not taken from us, we give it. So any of those of you who've read any work around the Holocaust or anything around Rwanda, the genocide, those personal accounts, those stories, people will tell you that the last thing to go is your sense of dignity. Because dignity and empowerment are linked. Just like it's the last thing we surrender, empowerment is the hardest thing to give ourselves. To give ourselves this sense that we have a voice, that we do make our own choices, that we are responsible for our own actions. Nobody else is responsible for our actions. We are responsible for our actions. That's a very big idea for a lot of people to grasp, which is why we have governments, which is why we have authoritarian structures like law enforcement. Those people have jobs because for the most part, a lot of us are just really unwilling to be self-responsible. And so we need somebody to tell us you can't speed when you drive. We need somebody to tell us it's not okay to go on your neighbor's lawn and take his dog. Because we're just unwilling to be truly self-responsible. That's how big an idea empowerment actually is. True empowerment is about becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's own rights. It's like finding your voice finally, and then being unwilling to let it go. I'm 55 this year. It's a big number for me, because I'm now closer to 60 than I ever was before. But I'll tell you something that happened when I turned 50. I had this kind of epiphany moment where, and both my parents, by the way, are still alive, because that's usually another definitive moment or defining moment in a person's life. They're both still alive. But I had this moment where I realized, wow, I don't really care what anybody else thinks about me. I don't know what happened. I woke up, I swear, at 49, and I was pretty clued into what other people were thinking, and some people had more influence on that opinion than others. And then I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up and I went, wow, I really don't give a crap. I kind of have accepted that this is who I am. I've got faults, I have blind spots. My wife will tell you I have many blind spots. But I'm okay with who I am, and I don't have anybody else in terms of their opinion of me that matters to me more than my own opinion of myself. Now, that's not arrogance, and it's not ego, and it's not narcissism. It's just I've finally reached a point where I am responsible for the person I am. I know I'm responsible for what I do. I know I am responsible for the way I behave. I'm not looking for anybody else to tell me otherwise. Now, that kind of happens when I turned 50. I don't know if it's happened for any of you earlier than that. For some people, it happens, for instance, when they suffer a major loss, like a parent dying. And they suddenly realize, I'm not living for my mom's approval or my dad's acceptance. I don't need to do that anymore. I am comfortable in the skin that I'm in. I am comfortable with who I am. That is empowerment. That sense of being comfortable in your own skin and for your own choices. That is true empowerment. And the people that have it, that walk amongst us, you can feel it off of them. You can feel that they're actually, we use words like grounded, that they're confident in who they are. And it's not a proudful, boastful, narcissistic kind of comfort. It's just that they just really solid people. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, some nods? I got some nods? That kind of person is somebody that we're almost naturally drawn to. We kind of want what they have. We want a little more of that in our lives. That's true empowerment. Putting your knowledge of yourself into action. So there's this project in the UK where it's an AI project, artificial intelligence, and they are looking at essentially how to mimic the human cognitive, not only the cognitive functioning, but also more sentience, more what the other parts, if you will, of what our brains do and our minds, right? Consciousness, not just cognitive abilities, but consciousness. And they came up with a definition as it relates to putting this into robots, that is, being in a state where you have the greatest potential influence on the world you can perceive. Greatest possible influence, greatest potential influence on the world you can perceive. That is empowerment. How many of you have a Roomba? You like your Roomba, right? It's pretty handy. It's a robot, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have faith in your Roomba? No? Do you trust your Roomba? You do? Yeah, why wouldn't you, right? I don't trust my broom because I know that I'm the one that has to use the broom. But I trust my Roomba. Do you know that your Roomba is learning? Are you aware of that? You are. I would be scared if I knew that. Your Roomba has a little chip inside of it that is learning as it performs the function. It is learning your environment. It is learning where you place things. It is making decisions, and here's the interesting part, it is trying to figure out shortcuts around the things you've placed in front of it so that it can perform its job. It is becoming more conscious of choices. Now, would we say that the Roomba is empowered? No, but we're getting there. Let's talk about this word. Words are really important to me. Let's talk about this word, inspire. Because there's a lot of inspiration happening in the world right now, right? Somebody has a plate of eggs and a nice piece of toast, and they take a picture of it, and somebody says, "Oh my God, your eggs and toast totally inspired me to have eggs and toast for breakfast." I'm so inspired by those pants you wore today. Okay, that's not inspiration. To inspire literally means to breathe life into. So those of you that have taken a workshop with me know there's a little bit of always audience participation. So I'm going to ask you to breathe. Take a big deep breath in. Big one, big deep breath. No, that wasn't it. No. A big breath in. Take a big breath in. Okay, now let it out slowly through your mouth. Yeah, you got to let it out. If you don't, you're going to rise up to the ceiling. Okay, now let's try that again, because I would say that you're breathing at about 30% right now. Maybe. Very shallow upper chest breathing. So try it again. One big breath in. Go. Okay, now let it out. Right. Now, those of you that actually did that fully, did you notice how you felt and how you feel differently breathing that oxygen in? Right? Okay, we're going to try it one more time, hopefully with everybody participating. What I'd like you to do is to lift your shoulders up as you breathe, roll them back gently, and then let it out as a sigh. Okay? When you're ready, go. Right. Oh, that was amazing. That was amazing. Okay. That is inspire. What you just did was you breathed life into yourself. You drew oxygen purposefully and consciously into yourself. That is inspiration. Feels great, right? Feels pretty good? When we're inspired, we make a decision to become our own personal cheerleader, to become our own number one fan. We breathe life into ourselves. We're not waiting for somebody else to set the condition for our own intrinsic motivation. That comes from within. We become connected to ourselves. We attune our attention to know ourselves, what fuels us, what builds our personal integrity. We kind of check in with ourselves on our internal dialogue and go, what are those must-haves that just have to be present for me in life? So you see, this is listening to ourselves. This is that first part. This is, I'm going to have a conversation with myself. I'm going to get to know myself. I'm going to understand who I really am. That is important because it opens up the space for you to be able to listen to someone else. In fact, the surest sign that you're not listening to yourself is that you have very little capacity to listen to someone else. Because they're going to occur to you like they're too needy. They're going to occur to you like they have too much to say, that they're over or they're self-important. Because it's because you won't have the space because you haven't had that conversation with yourself. That's what this ride is really all about. This ride is really about getting to know who you are and why you're here and what the heck you're going to do with the 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years you're going to get to have. I'd like you to introduce you to Julith. This is Julith. Who are you waiting for today?
I'm waiting for my sister, Beverly.
Oh, where's she coming in from?
She's coming in actually from Jamaica via New Jersey. She's coming to give me some moral support because I'm on Monday of next week, the 15th, I'm having major surgery. So
Okay.
She's coming as my backup to get me over that mountain.
Right.
There's a tumor on my brain, which is about the size of my palm, so it's quite a huge size. And it sits right here.
It sits sort of right here.
Right here, yeah. My right eye, I had problems focusing and we couldn't figure out what. There's no pain, there's no discomfort. My doctor said I have good news and I have bad news. I know what the problem is, but it's a brain tumor, so this is where we are. But as far as she could tell, it's benign.
Mm-hmm.
But she said it could spread to the brain stem because it's about 4 centimeters away, and that's pretty much game over if it goes there because they don't know the rate of growth. And so on Monday, we have scheduled surgery to remove the tumor. So that's where I am, but I feel really good.
You seem very accepting of this. I think if I had everything that you had going on and knowing that in a few days I was going to have brain surgery, I don't know if I would be as calm as you.
I don't see how being worried is going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I scare myself because I'm thinking, I should be nervous, I should be this, I should be that. And I can see the fear. Like some people are even afraid to talk to me because they think maybe I should mention the T word, tumor. And no, I have a tumor.
Have you had to have difficult conversations with your family?
No, not really. They formed a team called Team Juliet, which is my name.
Mm-hmm.
My kids decided to name it Marlo, and they had a party last week to celebrate Marlo's exit.
So you have a party for your tumor?
Yeah, to say goodbye. We had their friends' parents, my friends, my soccer team, like a lot of people came to wish me good luck. It was so awesome.
Wow.
But I let them know that all is going to be well. And I believe it. I'm not going towards any white light. Just yeah, it's all good.
And so your sister Beverly's coming in to give you that moral support.
She's my big sister. My mom's already dead many years, so she's kind of replaced my mom.
And as your big sister, what is Beverly like?
She was my role model, you know. She was a teacher, all those things that you want to be like your big sister. That's what she was for me. I wanted to be like her.
What was it like growing up together? Do you have a favorite memory of the two of you?
We live in a really small village. There's a hill and we're at the top of the mountain. At the end of the day, we, as a family, my parents, my brother, my sister, we would all sing. So much that people at the bottom of the hill would stop to hear us. So my memory of her is always singing with her. You know, those good times.
What are you feeling as you wait for her?
I don't think I could go through this without her. And so having her here is just the best I could hope for.
I'll be thinking of you on Monday.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Dad was a preacher. She was his wife. Just trying to make the world a little better. You know, shine right. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am lost by the water. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, even when the storm comes, I am lost by the water. Even when the rain falls, even when the flood starts rising, I am lost by the water.
I just love her. She is so amazing. Now, I'm happy to report that
Hi there.
that Julith had the operation on the Monday. They removed Marlo, the tumor, and she is fine. And her family, her kids, and the neighbors, they had a second party to wish Marlo a fond farewell and a happy next life, wherever the tumor was going. And for me, I've met, like you, I've met a lot of people who have something that they're carrying, something that's wrong with them. I've run out, in fact, I've lost count of how many hundreds of people I've talked to with either cancer or another terminal disease over the years that I've done this show. Totally lost count. It's in the hundreds. This is the first person I've met who was not describing that as being afflicted, suffering from, battling against, fighting it. It was just this, well, this is it. She's in my head. I don't want her in my head, so we're going to take her out and we're going to send her on her way. Okay. And we talked for about an hour. And I got to tell you, there were times when I was in my own head thinking to myself, well, this isn't right. I've got to set this woman straight. Like, she's going in for brain surgery. This is not a light matter. And you know what? I was wrong. Because she was empowered. Fully empowered. She was empowered in her perspective. She was empowered in her influence on her family and on her friends. She was thinking about this in a completely new way, and she owned that way fully. That woman, who I barely know, this woman right here, has changed my life in terms of how I see cancer. One person. That, to me, is empowered inspiration. Now, for most of us, that won't happen to us, maybe. So how do we get to know ourselves? Well, there are two ways that I know. There's mindfulness. Anybody familiar with mindfulness? Yeah? It's essentially a discipline. It's like yoga, in a way. Yoga helps you get there. Mindfulness is a way, like a disciplined practice of having your mind be still. Because our minds aren't necessarily designed to be still. They are amazing question and answer machines. I have a question, my mind will give an answer. Or it'll help me go look for an answer or find an answer. And when I don't have any more questions, my mind will actually come up with questions for me to answer. Like, why is that person's glasses round? I don't know. I never thought to ask. Why don't you ask her? Well, I don't really know her. Well, maybe you should. But I don't want to right now. Yeah, but then you won't know why her glasses are round. Maybe you like round glasses. I really don't like round glasses. It'll just carry on a conversation. It'll just keep going and going and going. It needs to be trained how to be still. Because if the mind is chattering away, then the other stuff that is really important about what I feel, about what is truly going on for me, it never gets to cut through the chatter. Because my mind is just constantly going, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Maybe we should have steak. No, I had steak last Wednesday. I don't think I want to have steak again. Maybe hot dogs. Nah, last hot dog I had wasn't great. Maybe chicken cutlets, chicken fillet. What about chicken fillet? Did you hear about chicken fillet? Like, it just goes and goes. The other way is having somebody help us understand our blind spots. We all have blind spots. A true blind spot is something about ourselves that we literally cannot see. We don't know it's there, but it's really clear and apparent to everybody else. And unless we're willing to have the courage to say to someone who's close to you, I would start with somebody who's close to you, listen, be honest with me. Do I have a blind spot that I don't see? Do you see that I have something that might be holding me back, or something that might be interfering with how I am with other people? Or how come I'm getting the same result every time with friendships? And what's my blind spot about this? Unless you have that courage to ask that question, you will never get that information, and so you'll just keep on washing, rinsing, repeating. And that's craziness. We don't want to do that. So blind spots, getting to know your blind spots, is how you get to know yourself. And the more that we get to know ourselves, the more we bring that inspiration in. You become one of those people who gets hungry to learn more about yourself. You get inspired by who you are. I want to know more. That's true inspiration. Let's look at this word. This is a really big word in business. Everybody's innovating. There's so much innovation going on. Everybody loves innovation. Everybody's innovating. Right? We're Instagramming, innovating all over the place. But we're not really. Because to innovate truly means to apply information and imagination. Credit to all my creative people. Where are you? All my people who are creative. Yes, imagination is important. And initiative, because that's the action part. It's not just enough to have a great idea. We all have great ideas. True innovation is about putting those ideas into action. Okay? And it's to effect a change, to make a change, which are replicable and satisfy a very specific need. It's got to be replicable because it can't be just an innovation that's specific to you. It's like the 7-foot-tall person who realizes if he puts the thing up on the top shelf, that's a great idea. Well, not everybody's 7 feet. Not everybody can replicate that. That's not an innovation. That's a personal preference. To move society forward, to move a team forward, to move a family forward, it has to be able to be replicable by everybody. True innovation. We've got to apply new ways to problem solve and new approaches to better listen. And I added this part. This is my own adding right here. To listen to our patients to form the most meaningful relationship possible with them. Now, why is that? Why the most meaningful relationship? You might want to ask yourselves. Why is he saying that? Why is this guy who is not out of a hospital, in our hospital, telling us it's about a meaningful relationship? Anybody? Yeah. Absolutely. The other thing about it is this is not something that can necessarily be improved upon by technology or by a better procedure. A meaningful relationship is a qualitative experience. I was cared for, I was heard, I was listened to. Somebody else might be better at whipping pancreases out. Somebody else might be really, really good at keeping babies alive. Somebody might have an emergency department that can really crank through volume. There's always going to be somebody who on a quantitative basis can be better. But a meaningful relationship, that's about connection. That's about how you make these people feel when they come through the door and they come in contact with you. And there's no, they did that better. They were better at creating a meaningful relationship. No, it's just, I felt seen and I felt heard. That's why I put the emphasis there. Make it meaningful for them. Human beings are meaning-making machines. Why are there two people wearing green here? I don't know. I could make that mean that it's St. Patrick's Day. It's not, but it could be for them. Right? I can make meaning. We all make meaning. Make your interactions with your patients meaningful to them. Which brings me to Joanne. I'd like you to introduce you to Joanne. Just hold on a second. Joanne, I met at the airport. We were just getting ready to wrap, and I walked over to this woman with purple hair, as I would do any time, because I really want to know why people want to have purple hair. And I was super curious about what she was wearing. And so I introduced myself. I didn't think this was actually going to turn into an interview, but I wanted to introduce you to Joanne.
Hi there.
Hi,
Who are you waiting for today?
for my son Shane.
Okay.
He's coming in from Birmingham, Alabama. He's just been playing wheelchair rugby actually for Team Canada.
Wow.
So I'm really excited for him to come back.
Was he always in a wheelchair?
No, actually he got sick when he was 4 months old. He got something called meningococcal septicemia. It's kind of like meningitis, except it attacks your bloodstream. I opened his sleeper to change his diaper and he had like bright red blotches that looked like bruises. It looked like his blood vessels were exploding, which they actually were. By the time we got to the hospital, like 5 minutes later, he was hardly breathing.
He was hardly breathing.
Yeah. And I ran into emergency and the nurse actually said to me, you have to wait your turn. And I said, my baby's dying, get me a doctor. It took them 4 hours to stabilize him and his plastic surgeon, he thought he was going to die.
Did you think that at all? Did you ever have those thoughts?
Never. I was absolutely determined that he was not going to die. Determined.
It sounds like it was touch and go for a long time.
His whole body, like he went black.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And
That's why they had to amputate.
How old was he when he had his first amputation?
7.5 months old. Yeah.
And when did they amputate?
Both legs below the knee. His left hand entirely, and actually the fingers on his right hand came off on their own. Yeah.
That must have been terrifying.
You have no idea. I can't explain what it felt like.
Wow. When you first saw him after all of the surgeries, can you describe that moment?
I was just so relieved that he didn't die. He's a miracle.
Is he your firstborn?
Yeah. My only child.
Are you married?
A single mom.
You're a single mom. Were you single at the time?
No. His father couldn't deal with it, so unfortunately he had a struggle, and I understand that.
It's tough on a marriage.
But I had to focus on getting Shane well. But I was already a little bit older when he was born, and I was just so thankful, and he's been my godsend.
How did you maintain, all the little things? Like, you're just a boy, and I'm your mom, or you do all that other stuff?
I have 3 siblings, all with children, and I always said there's to be no preferential treatment. We're going to all treat him just like a regular kid, and he teaches me something new every day. Be positive, be grateful. Oh, I broke a nail. Don't complain, I don't have any, you know. I've always wanted him to be independent, and I'm still trying to get him to do everything for himself.
That's really important to you.
Very.
Why?
He has to know that he's got to be able to fend for himself in the real world, and he can, and he does.
So as you wait for him, what are you feeling?
I think I'm so lucky. He's so amazing.
It's been a real honor to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. You too.
Bye-bye.
You can't carry on when all your hope is gone. When you fought so long, but every word just comes out wrong. And when the road gets tough, when you're low on love, you will know you're not alone. Don't give up your soul. Know that you belong. You're not the only one.
New clicker. It's a good story, huh? Well, that's a good story. You know, I thought long and hard about this, like how for me was this innovation, and then it dawned on me that what's innovative about Joanne and her approach with Shane was that she realized that she just couldn't approach his life in the same old ways. Like she had to prepare him for life. She had to treat him like he is a normal guy. And you can see it in her eyes that she has a fierce determination that he consider himself to be like everyone else, as capable as everyone else. Again, that was, for me, I walked away and I was awestruck, especially when I saw him come out, because I hadn't met him before he came out of the airport gates. And I was struck by this, how full of life this guy is. And I don't know if any of you know what rugby's about, but rugby's a fairly aggressive, physical, violent sport. Having played it and having now raised a 20-year-old who does the same thing, I can tell you that it's a violent, aggressive place to be. And when her son came to her and said, I want to play rugby, wheelchair rugby, which is even, by the way, more violent because they use the wheelchairs to crash into each other. Right? Because that's what we would do, wouldn't it? Yeah. She had a brief moment where the old Joanne thought he's too precious, he's too fragile, he's too delicate. And then she said, and we didn't have this in the clip, and she said to me, and then I realized that him asking me to play wheelchair rugby and telling me that he was going to do this was affirmation of everything that I have raised him to be, that he doesn't see himself as delicate. He doesn't see himself as precious or fragile. He sees himself like a normal guy. Now, to me, that's innovative thinking. If we want people to be innovative, we must discover what is important to them. We must engage them in meaningful issues. The simplest way to discover what's meaningful is to notice what people talk about and where they spend their energy. What Margaret Wheatley is talking about there is intrinsic motivation. What drives all of us? What do we hear? What are we curious about? That is the source of a person's innovation. That's where they want to be creative. That's where they want to apply initiative. That's where they want to be ingenious. And so they'll seek information. And in Joanne's case, it was about providing her son with the most normal life she could possibly think of. And, you know, the medical world is full of all kinds of innovation. Really, it really is. In 2015, there was a conference in India, and they drew people from all different walks of life. They all shared one thing in common, which is they had some level of science in their background, but different sciences. And then what they did was they took this large group and they put them into teams of 12. And they said, we'd like you to look at these problems or these issues in different ways and come up with solutions. And one of the problems that this particular team was faced with is that in rural India, you cannot get oxygen to hospitals because it's difficult to transport, it is dangerous to transport on the road systems, right? And the hospitals aren't necessarily able to receive it. And so people are dying because they can't have oxygen in hospitals. And so this team of 12 came up with the O2matic, which is a cylinder, almost like a thermos, that houses two chemicals that react with each other that create oxygen on demand for about an hour. The chemicals by themselves are inert. They can be shipped in a box. But when they come together, they create this inside the flask, they create the reaction. Anybody can create the reaction. It was the chemist on the team that came up with that. It was the chemist who said, but I know how to make oxygen. And nobody had thought that oxygen was something that needed to be made. And so that to me was an excellent example of, here's an issue, there's something in this issue that we're all taking for granted, which is that oxygen is everywhere. Oxygen is available everywhere. You don't necessarily need to make it. But in this case, they do. They do need to make it. And so I'm happy to say that the O2matic is now going into production, and it is resolving the issue of transporting, the dangerous job of transporting oxygen to hospitals. That to me is innovative thinking. So I'd like you to close your eyes just for a second. I promise you I won't take anything off the table. Close your eyes. Everybody just close your eyes. Trust me, even those that are untrusting, just close. I promise you nothing's going to happen. So I want you to imagine just for a moment, that there's a problem that you have. You've already got that problem in your mind. And what if 12 people could figure that out? What if 12 people you work with, 12 people you know, had the solution to that problem? What if it was just right in front of them? Now, what if you worked in an environment where that kind of activity could happen all the time? And so as a group, you were moving through concerns and problems and finding solutions that freely, that openly. Would that be an inspirational place to work? Would that be a place you would want to come to learn? Think about that. Okay, you can open your eyes. You guys are so trusting. Thank you. This word, another big word. I want to say that the American Nurses Association, when they come up with these three words for Nurses Week this year, I wonder how much thought they actually put into that, because it's quite a powerful message, these three words, right? To really take on. This is a massive word, influence. Because of course now in our society, people seek to buy influence, right? It's become a commodity. I can buy followers, I can buy eyeballs, right? Well, quite literally I can buy eyeballs, yes, but that's not what I meant. I meant you can buy attention. But that's not necessarily influence. Influence is to have an important effect on someone or something, to change them in an indirect yet important way. We're having a big crisis right now in Canada because one of the firms at Cambridge Analytica, everybody aware of Cambridge Analytica, right? Okay. Well, one of the firms that they worked with was based off of Vancouver, our west coast. And it's sort of thrown the country for a little bit of a crisis because Canadians, we don't see ourselves this way as somebody who would purposely use information to defraud an election or a Brexit. We don't see ourselves that way. So morally, we're having quite an issue with this in the country. Throwing an election or throwing a referendum vote is not having influence. To have influence, the most powerful form of influence is our ability to model how we behave so that other people are motivated to imitate that and make it their own. Think about YouTube. Think about YouTube for a second. How many people, just by a show of hands, have gone onto YouTube to learn how to do something? That's a lot of us, right? That's right. Now think about that. YouTube is built on the principle of this type of influence. That we can learn from each other without necessarily having somebody do it for us. That somebody can actually do it and we can imitate it. They can model some way of being and we will imitate that because we want it. We want it for ourselves. We want what they have, what they possess. That's what YouTube is built on. That, and it's also an amazing place for eyeballs to go. People only feel the urge to mimic each other when they have the same goal. Now think about that. All the things that compete for our attention span, compete for our interest. If you're going to go to the trouble as a human being to mimic another person's behavior, it's because you believe that you have the same goal. The self-help book industry, and I call it an industry because it is so prolific, is built upon that premise. You want a happy relationship? I think I have a happy relationship. Here are my 12 steps for you to do. Wash, rinse, repeat. Mimicry is such a powerful, powerful force in our being and how we group together as a species. Anybody know why that is? Why we are so adept at mimicking each other? Anybody? Yeah, and why is it the first form of learning? But why would that be so important? Think about it.
Survival.
Yeah, exactly. Survival. My wife and I took on an experiment this year. We're raising turkeys. Turkeys. There's a vote for naming of the turkeys. So far, Christmas and Thanksgiving are the two names that are right up there. Our daughter has named them Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock because one of them has a unibrow. Interesting thing about turkeys, turkeys do not come out hatched knowing how to eat and drink. They do not know how to eat and drink, unlike chickens. Chickens know how to do that. Pigs, what we also raise, know how to suckle right away. Cows, they know how to do that. Turkeys have to be shown. They have to be shown how to drink, and they have to be shown how to eat. And 97% of all turkey poult fatalities, yes, that is a figure, that is a statistic, 97% of all turkey poult fatalities are because they die in the first 48 hours of being rehomed because they die of starvation or dehydration. That's a pretty phenomenal figure, isn't it? So they have enough nutrition and hydration when they come out of the egg to be shipped to your house. That's about 48 hours. After that, it's up to you. And if you suck as a parent, they were going to die. And they literally mimic. If you peck at that with your fingers and they watch that, then they will go and they will peck at that. You have to put their beaks in the water and pull the water up with your fingers so it drips, or else they will not drink. Okay? Survival. We mimic our other people in our species because we are learning from them. We are adept. We are adaptive learners. And that goes to our survival. Now, we're not the only primates that do that, but we're one of the most effective at doing it. Which brings me to David and his relationship with his mom.
Hi there.
Hi.
Who are you waiting for today?
My mom.
Where's she coming in from?
Alaska. She went to see my grandma for 3 weeks.
Have you missed your mom?
A lot. My mom means the world to me. I wouldn't be where I am without her.
Yeah? What makes you say that?
We're always there for each other. I've got Tourette's. It was rough growing up with Tourette's.
Ah, okay. What led you to this diagnosis of Tourette's?
I started twitching, so I go like do that, or I start making barking sounds and stuff like that.
What are some of the challenges having Tourette's?
You know how kids can be. Whenever somebody's a little bit different. So that was hard for me socially. I didn't have many friends in school.
Right.
And she was always there. She was at every school meeting. She was wiped every tear.
How did your mom explain all of this to you when you were younger, say prior to your diagnosis?
H.E.A.R.
What would she say to you to reassure you?
She just tried to show me that that I was perfect just the way I was.
Mm-hmm.
And she made life pretty much possible for me. I don't think I could have done it without her.
What was the lowest moment for you?
The kids were pretty bad to me in high school. It got to the point where I had to get homeschooled for the last 2 years of it.
Homeschool?
Yeah. Just because it wasn't safe for me anymore. That's how bad it had gotten.
What do you mean not safe?
I was getting physically assaulted, shoved around, threatened.
It got that bad?
It was pretty bad. So I got to the point that the school board actually provided a teacher that came in twice a week to do my homeschooling. My mom fought hard for that.
Wow. That is horrible.
Yeah. I'd be like, I might be laying in bed feeling kind of down, and she'd lay down next to me and put her arm around me and give me a hug and cheer me up, or, a big kiss on the forehead. I needed her then more than ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I think back, growing up, I wouldn't change a thing just because of her.
Well, she sounds like an amazing woman.
She's a wonderful human being, she really is.
You're super grateful to your mom.
I am. For giving me a chance to succeed. For having confidence in me when I didn't have confidence in myself. I've been able to live a normal life. I've got a great career in law enforcement. And I've got my mom to thank for all that. It's her turn now to be taken care of. Now I'll give her a hug and a kiss on the head and tell her everything's going to be all right,
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You take care of yourself.
You too.
All the best.
Thank you.
If you feel sad, if you feel low, after the rain comes the rainbow, and I'll be there wherever you go. Sometimes life can be hard on you, and I'll be there when you feel good. When the world crumbles around you, you and I will make it through. There's a world waiting behind.
So that's David and his mom. And for me, that is about a type of influence that leaves a person with a profound change in who they are. And so, and I know before I played that, I was talking about how we mimic each other's behavior. And perhaps some of you thought I meant by when we physically do something, somebody copies what we physically do. That's one level of mimicry for sure. But David's mom's influence was in what she gave him. She gave him a sense of himself. She gave him the confidence in himself. And so when he needed to, he mimicked. He started to think about himself the same way. He started to see himself as his mother sees him. That is also a type of mimicry. And we all have that profound influence on people. Years ago, I worked with another hospital in Canada, and I was approached by a young man. His name's H.E.A.R, and he worked as a volunteer, still does, in the stroke ward. And he does that, he volunteers, because he had a stroke when he was 34, young man, when he was 34. And he was laying in the bed, right? He was fortunate enough to get to the hospital, right? Laying in the bed. And another man came by, tapped on the edge of his bed, and said to him, "When are you going to get up and walk today? When is that going to happen?" And H.E.A.R says to me, I was full of kind of self-loathing. I was 34. I'd had a stroke. I didn't feel confident in my ability to walk anymore. My left side, I had paralysis in my upper left side. I really didn't feel like walking was actually that important anymore. So I grunted at the guy. And he walked away. The next day he came by, tapped on the edge of the bed, and said, "So is today the day? Is today the day that you're going to walk again?" Now, by the way, this is a person who does this every single day, right? This is a volunteer in this case. So this person sees lots of people every single day. But he made a point of making this connection with H.E.A.R. 3 weeks later, every single day, H.E.A.R answers, "Today's the day." The gentleman sits down beside him and says, "I will help you get out of the bed." He takes his first steps with this man. So profoundly influenced by that act of compassion, that act of love, that he now volunteers. He's in his 5th year volunteering at the same hospital in the same ward. He feels as if it's his duty to give people what was given to him. His duty, that's how he described it to me. It is my duty. That is empowered influence. That is a personal choice that nobody can take away from H.E.A.R. Nobody can take it away from David's mother. Empowered influencing, in this case, what if we had a powerful, cohesive culture through modeling our own behavior in our interactions with each other toward the common goal of clear, attentive, respectful, and meaningful interactions. Imagine this is a house, and the family in this house treat each other with clear, attentive respect, and they have meaningful interactions. Imagine you walked into that house, and what you felt when you got into that house was that these people not only care for each other, but they care for the people that come through their door. Imagine you were part of this family in this house. Something you did every single day had that kind of profound influence on people walking through the door. I want you to imagine that kind of empowered influence transforming. How many more times would those people choose to come through the door, to be seen by you, to be cared for by you. When you go to the grocery store and you run into somebody that you've met because they came through these doors, and they look at you the same way that David looked at his mother, because you had such a profound influence on their experience of being here. That is empowered influence. That is within everybody's choice to create. Nobody can give it to you, and nobody can take it away from you once you choose to see yourself that way. That is true empowerment. You can do it as an individual. As an individual, you can inspire others that you work with. And those of you that are units and teams can inspire other teams to create a culture. That is well within your ability and your choice to do. So I'm very, very grateful to be here for what is the Friday of Nurses Week. I hope you've had an amazing week. Those of you who are moms, I wish you a happy Mother's Day. Those of you that have moms, which is all of us, at some level, give your mom a hug. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.